Before we start, make sure you subscribe and like this video. When I left my parents' home and moved into my own apartment, I had accumulated a lot of items that I needed to get rid of. I never felt comfortable using Craigslist, especially after hearing numerous unsettling stories about it, so I listed many of my belongings on Facebook Marketplace. This included old childhood toys, book sets, and a wide range of other items. The weightlifting set was what I priced the highest, selling it for $340, which I felt was a reasonable deal. To my surprise, I wasn't receiving many inquiries. Occasionally, someone would message me asking if the item was still available, only to never follow up. That is, until a man named Joe expressed interest. His profile picture was grainy, depicting a man wearing a fishing hat and holding a fish. His account information was set to private, and I could only see that we had 3 mutual friends, all of whom were local girls. The name Joe was familiar to me, as I recognized it as the last name of a man I knew from my town, who had previously dated a girl I was somewhat friendly with. Assuming it was the same person, especially since I knew he enjoyed fishing, I eagerly agreed to meet him. He suggested coming to pick up the weights around 11 p.m. after work, and I agreed, despite finding the late hour a bit inconvenient. As we messaged, I decided to be friendly and mentioned that I recognized his name, to which he responded with a brief pause before confirming it. The interaction began to feel a bit strange, but I didn't think much of it at the time. He requested my address, which I provided, and then there was a long silence. When I returned home from work around 6 p.m., I headed to the gym and came back around 7:30 p.m. Throughout this time, I waited anxiously for any acknowledgement from Joe, but there was none. Finally, he messaged me asking for my phone number, which I provided. Within seconds, I received a text from a number with our local area code. Noticing the green text on my iPhone, I momentarily considered the possibility of a scam, but I dismissed the thought since I believed I knew this person. Around 11 p.m., I finally received a text from Joe stating that he had arrived. When I looked out the window, I saw a dark-colored car parked on the street. I tried to call him to let him know I needed help carrying the weights, but he rejected the call and instead texted me to come outside. I replied that he could come in and that I needed assistance with the weights, but his response raised my suspicions. He texted back, saying he needed to see if you're straight first, which I found highly concerning. At this point, I decided to contact the mutual friends I had with Joe on Facebook, and the first one to respond, Angela, informed me that this was likely a catfish, someone pretending to be Joe. I looked out the window again and saw the car still there, and I also noticed someone hiding in the bushes in front of the house. I immediately shut the door, turned off the lights, and waited. The car eventually honked its horn, and the person in the bushes ran towards it, and the car sped off. The next day, the Facebook profile was deleted, and I received a threatening text message warning me to watch my back and that they knew where I lived. I reported this to the police, but they considered it a low priority case. To this day, I have lived in constant fear, always checking outside before leaving my apartment at night. It must have been around 2018 when I decided to sell an old pinball machine that had been sitting in my parents' attic for a while. I didn't want my sisters to know about it, as I didn't want to have to split the money, so I listed it on Facebook Marketplace when my family was away on a trip that I couldn't attend due to work commitments. My parents' house is located in a nice neighborhood, but it's not a gated community. I listed the pinball machine for $200, and the next day received a message from an account with no profile picture under the name Jasmine, expressing interest. They offered $175, which I accepted, and we set up a time for the pickup. When the agreed upon time arrived, Jasmine never showed up. She kept messaging me, saying she'd be there soon, and it was getting late. I had work the next day, so I asked if we could reschedule for the following day, but she insisted she was on her way. Around 11:45 p.m., she finally messaged me that she had arrived, and I went to the front door to see a car with all 4 doors open and 4 people, 1 woman and 3 men, approaching the house. I messaged Jasmine, asking if she was there with other people, but she stopped responding. As the group approached the door, I kept the storm door locked and said I couldn't let them all in, as my parents were asleep. Jasmine, or the person claiming to be her, tried to open the door, yelling at me. I heard the group yelling obscenities and insults, and I saw one of the men urinate. Eventually, the group left, and I went upstairs to try to sleep. But a couple of hours later, I heard the unmistakable sound of a window shattering downstairs. I quietly locked my bedroom door and called 911, hiding under my bed as I heard the intruders ransacking the house. They were in and out in less than 5 minutes, long before the police arrived. When the police did show up, I filed a report and shared the details, including the Facebook account information. To my surprise, the detectives took the case seriously. They were able to track down the Jasmine girl, who lived a few towns over in a less desirable area, and with a search warrant, they found multiple stolen items from my parents' house. The 3 men who accompanied her were also charged with burglary. I'm not sure if my claim of being verbally threatened helped the detectives take the case more seriously, but I'm grateful that the majority of the stolen items were recovered. My family was initially upset, but they ultimately understood the situation and were relieved that no one was harmed. I was searching Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace for a used iPhone 7, as this was a while ago when phones still had home buttons. I came across a listing for a like-new iPhone for around $300, which seemed like a great deal. The seller, a man named Melvin, seemed friendly and provided details about the phone being factory, unlocked, and never opened. Melvin told me he was only available that morning at a location closer to me, but now he was an hour north. Knowing this was a good deal, I convinced my friend Martina to accompany me on the trip, promising to buy her food as a reward. Melvin instructed me to meet him in the parking lot of a police precinct about an hour away, as he only conducted deals in police station lots to avoid scams. This made me feel more confident in the transaction, so Martina and I set off on the journey. When we arrived at the police station, the parking lot was empty except for police cars. We drove around a few times, but there was no sign of Melvin or his black Altima. He then called me, saying he was having car trouble on the side of the road and asked me to come to his location. He sent me the coordinates, which were on a secluded pitch-black road surrounded by woods on both sides. Martina strongly advised against going, but I felt like we had come this far and didn't want to waste the trip. As we approached the location, we saw the reflection of a car's headlights in the distance, but we couldn't make out anyone inside or outside the vehicle. Melvin started calling me repeatedly, and when I ignored his calls, he texted me, asking why I didn't stop. We decided to head to a nearby diner to get some food. While we were there, a man in a hooded sweatshirt entered and kept glancing over at our table. Martina and I noticed that this man's voice matched the one we had heard on the phone with Melvin. As soon as we paid the bill and left, we noticed the man quickly exiting the diner as well. Please subscribe and like the video. Also comment your favorite horror movie so I can stay motivated to upload more videos like this.